Hey guys, my name is Alex Smithers, and I'm going to be taking the debate position that the missile strike killing Quassem Soleimani will have negative impacts for national security in the Middle East. So, just really quick background on US Iran relations. They have been generally poor since the removal of Mossadegh in 1953 by the CIA. Um, they did start to take a turn in 2014. The US government makes some positive momentum with talks regarding the nuclear deal, which takes place in 2015 with the US, five other countries, the EU, and Iran. Um, but this leads to the US withdrawing from the nuclear deal in 2018 and implementing a maximum pressure campaign on Iran. This leads to massive protests across the country in late 2019 over the sanctions. And then on December 27th, a U.S. contractor is killed in a rocket attack. The U.S. says that Hezbollah is to blame, while Iraq says that ISIS is the perpetrator. 2 days later, on the 29th of December, the U.S. does their own airstrikes on known militia sites as a response to the previous airstrike. And then on the 31st of December, protesters and militia members stormed the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and actually are able to breach the Green Zone. And then ultimately, January 3rd of 2020, Soleimani is killed in an airstrike while leaving Baghdad International Airport in Iraq. So, who is Soleimani? Why is this so significant? Why is this negative, possibly, for national security? He is the second most powerful person in Iran behind the supreme leader, and killing him has actually been compared to killing the CIA or the head of the CIA and the head of the U.S. Central Command combined. Soleimani started his military career during the Islamic Revolution and became a hero for Iran in the Iran-Iraq War against Saddam Hussein, and he was also instrumental in removing ISIS from the region. He actually initially helped the U.S. take on the Taliban after September 11th. That was until George Bush called Iran part of the axis of evil, which caused him to distance himself from the United States after that. But Soleimani is definitely a controversial figure in the Western world for numerous reasons, like funding Hezbollah, other militant groups, siding with Bashar al Assad in Syria while he was using chemical warfare. And the Pentagon says he's responsible for numerous attacks on U.S. interest and troops. He's been sanctioned by the UN, designated a terrorist by the United States. And really, the mysterious thing about him is he does a lot of covert operations, so it's hard to tell the true extent of his influence, but he is known to have been very, very personally close to the supreme leader. So some immediate consequences obviously happened as a result of killing Soleimani, and the very first thing was Iran retaliating with a missile strike on the Al Assad Air Base, housing U.S. soldiers. And as a result of that, 110 U.S. soldiers were diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. In addition to that, 3,500 troops were deployed to the region at a time while this administration has promised to stop endless wars and to bring the troops home. U.S. citizens in Iraq were ordered to leave immediately just out of safety reasons. And then on January 5th of 2020, Iran finally suspends all commitments under the 2015 nuclear deal. A few days later, a really tragic incident where Iran shoots down accidentally Ukrainian flight 757, killing all 176 people on board, all innocent civilians. And this is a direct result of these rising tensions and people being on edge. A couple weeks later, January 24th, there are hundreds of thousands of people protest all across Iraq, calling on U.S. troops to leave. So, in addition to these immediate results, there's also the question of the legality of the airstrike. So the Trump administration says that Soleimani was plotting an imminent and sinister attack on American diplomats and military personnel. That's his quote. But there are conflicting intelligence reports on how imminent this attack was. Because according to Trump administration officials, the president authorized this attack back in June of 2019 on the condition that, end quote, Iran's aggression resulted in the death of an American, which it did, the U.S. contractor. However, this contradicts why the administration didn't tell Congress about the missile strike. So also killed in the missile strike was a senior Iraqi official. I'm not going to try to butcher his name, but he is designated as a terrorist by the United States. However, the Iraqi government called it an attack on their sovereignty and an act of aggression on Iraq. So, in addition to that, there was a possible violation of international law because of that, the airstrike being in Iraq without the Iraqi government's permission or knowledge, which violates the charter of the UN. There is a possible violation of US law because there is no authorization by Congress. And in addition, there's a possible violation of the human rights law because 8 others were killed in the blast who were not targets of the airstrike. So just some final thoughts just to kind of wrap up. My main point is I really think that this is negative for national security because ultimately this makes Iran more unpredictable. And as a result, US troops and diplomats in the region are more at risk. So with these unfavorable state actors, we need to be able to know their every move, and the more even-tempered they remain, the more predictable they are, and makes it easier to determine their next move. So not only does this heighten tensions with Iran, but also with Iraq now too, inside of the country, dividing them on their preferences of having U.S. troops stay or leave. And another point too is Soleimani's replacement is said to be just as competent as Soleimani. One Iranian political expert I read is quoting having said that he is a veteran with decades of overseas military experience, and his appointment is unlikely to either reduce the Quds Force influence in the Iranian foreign policy nor to change the Iranian influence in the region. So, in addition to that, he was an idol to a lot of people in Iran, which the killing of him just kind of strengthens the resentment of the Iranian people towards the United States. And then, not to mention, he got his wish of dying as a martyr. Um, the Hezbollah leader, I have a quote from him, and it just really kind of shows their thinking of this. And it says, "Desire for martyrdom flips the balance of power between us and the enemy. The enemy's highest punishment against us is to kill us, but our highest desire is to be martyrs, so we cannot be defeated." So we live in this new age of asymmetrical warfare, where missile strikes may make us look like a strong nation that takes this decisive action, but when it comes down to it, taking out one general is going to have very little impact on our enemy's overall goal. So, thank you.